Hey, what's up gamers? Here to do, I should call another memories video, and this time it's time to lock 'em and load 'em for one of my other favorites by Konami, who also did the Ninja Turtles, or I should say the best Ninja Turtles games, the Manhattan Project and Turtles in Time. This time it's one that I'm sure all you side-scrolling shoot-'em-up fans are familiar with, Contra. Yeah. Now what is Contra, may you ask? It's another great 2D side-scrolling shoot-'em-up game based off the beloved arcade game. But this time it's a rare occasion because this is one of the rare times that you actually get a great NES game that actually surpasses what the arcade game did. Yeah, that's right. An NES game that actually is better than its arcade counterpart. This game, of course, you're sent on a mission, one player or two players. Obviously, I play as one player because I very rarely got two players in this game. But if you do happen to play two players, well, you can also go along with a second player cooperatively, and well, what do? You fight your way through a montage of enemies, which turns out, should be no surprise, are aliens. And yeah, each stage is, well, mostly the same side-scrolling. Most of the time it's side-scrolling. And you get guns. Now, as much fun as these games are, well, they do have their frustrating factors. Of course, you're only allowed one hit, which can be from anything. An enemy, bullets, projectiles, anything. And, well, when you get hit, you lose a life, even though you can respawn in the exact same location. And the same applies for all these Contra games of this series, every single one. And you limit it to, count that, 3 lives and 3 continues. If you lose them all, you're done. So if you think you're man enough to go on this hard as hell mission to fight against these aliens, even though I don't see why any government agent would send out just 1 or 2 guys to fight off a whole army of aliens, well, then you could put the famous code in, count it the Konami code, that's what it's famous for being known for, and I'm sure all you Contra fans know this, on the first game, that is, for both the US and Japanese version. Yeah, I forget what it is exactly, just read the instructions, or better yet, just look online, I'm not here to discuss it, and it gives you 30, count them, 30 lives. And even if you lose them all and you continue, they're all yours again, 30 lives again, for all the continues. So you make your way through, and it's a side-scrolling game. Shoot a mirage of aliens, occasionally you get a free extra life, and of course the most important thing, which makes this game extra awesome, the upgrades for guns. Yeah. You get ones with more bullets that be fired out, you get the most least favorited, of course, and mine too as well, the laser, so you might as well stay away from this one, but the most that you have to get most of the time, the most favorited is the spread gun. Oh yeah, now that's what I'm talking about. So yeah, you get through each level and has a boss fight at the end. Some of them are easy, first level, and of course most of this game requires paying attention. In fact, all these games do. They require your most attention, so they're not easy, but the first one can be easy for most fans who are familiar with this game, but it can be challenging, so it requires a lot of attention if you plan on making it through this hard as hell mission. So the question is, are you man enough for this game? Can you take out this army of evil invading aliens and save the world once and for all? Well, you gotta make it through this game. You gotta make it to the side-scrolling level, and then you got sort of like an overhead level, which can be tough, and yeah, you gotta dodge bullets and stuff. It can be hard. The only thing that sucks, though, is once you lose a life, and you have an upgrade, well, your upgrade's all gone, you're down to regular basic pea shooter. This is your primary weapon. And then you got another boss fight, and then you got the going up in the waterfall stage, and then you got another overhead like stage with a boss that, I swear, looks sort of like Optimus Prime a little bit, or like the Transformers logo, but yeah, they're tricky as hell, and it gets tougher and tougher. And then you got more side-scrolling stages, and you got this one with snow, it looks like, and bombs are being dropped at you, and all this crap, and more harder bosses, and more projectiles, flames being thrown out at you. It's crazy, it's just madness to try to beat these aliens. Then he comes to the alien's lair, and what is it? It's the alien that, well, yeah, looks like the alien from the movie Alien, or Aliens, you know, the films from the 80s, the famous Aliens films. Christ, if you can take that sucker out, that's it, right? No, you gotta go further, more enemies, and then you take out the heart. So anybody who's beaten this game probably knows that. So, you beat the game, and there you go. The world is saved once and for all. Great memories there. So of course your gaming skills are tested even more with the sequel, Super Contra. Or at least that's what it's called, released in the arcade. And when of course it was released on NES, once again, it was called Super Contra, right? No, it's called Super C. Why, I have no idea. I always just call it Super Contra. And wouldn't you know it, this game is hard. In fact, even harder, especially this time around, unlike the Japanese version, which gives you the 30 lives. This one gives you only 10 live code. Yeah, why Japan? Why? I mean, we've gotten plenty of hard games from Japan I've played. I played Super Mario Lost Levels, which is of course a Japanese Mario 2, but why only 10 lives? This game's even harder, and people ask why. Well, because, let's see, more enemies that come at you, and, yeah, 10 lives. Seriously, I could never I had a hard time just beating the first level on one player. It doesn't matter. Bottom line, I could never do it. I know you can call me a wimp, but I'm just not man enough to take on this challenge. So, that's why I had the game still left over on NES, and a genie. Game genie, that is. To give me the code. For every enemy I kill, I get extra lives. Couldn't ask for any better. So what's the game like? When I say it's still fun? Yeah. Unless you're man enough to take up the challenge for only 10 lives. What kind of bullshit is that? But otherwise, it's pretty cool if you want to see further on in the game. I recommend getting a copy of it on NES and a Game Genie. I just wish Wii Virtual Console or Wii U Virtual Console would give us a damn Game Genie mod. I don't know why not. I mean, it would be a good idea. But otherwise, yeah. Typical side-scrolling stage with a more barrage of enemies. Looks like a helicopter boss, and then you got this overhead-like stage, which is different this time around. It's not like you're just shooting overhead. You actually move around like kind of a three-dimensional overhead style, kind of like Legend of Zelda, sort of. Can be a little tricky, but it's tough. Let me tell you, the enemies come at you quicker. There's no screwing around this time around. Yes, you got a two-player option, but what does it matter? This game's harder as hell than the first one. And yeah, more side-scrolling stages, I think another overhead stage, and my god, these levels are crazy. Even the last level, I swear, with this ceiling that keeps coming down on you, I mean, I don't know how any person on Earth can make it through this on only 10 lives. I mean, there's people that said to have made it without even using a 10 live code. How the hell can you do it? I mean, Chris, it's like what Bill Paxton's character says on Aliens. For me, it would just be, game over, man. Game over. Yeah. And then you get to this weird boss, which looks like a woman's face covered in, I don't know what the hell this is supposed to be. But yes, beat the boss, and world is saved once again, for all. I'm not man enough to take on the challenge with just a 10 life code, so I cheated. Big whoop. These aliens cheat like crazy anyway by killing us like that. Until the world's saved once again. Until a third one comes out. And wouldn't you know it, it's for the Super Nintendo. Stepping it up to 16-bit. This game was even harder, because guess what? There's no 10 live code, no 30 live code, no codes at all. You select the difficulty, but let me tell you, if you can get a Super Nintendo, actual Super Nintendo copy of this game, not on the Wii, but on the actual Super Nintendo, I suggest getting a Game Genie, because otherwise you're going to be missing out on some really cool levels. I sure did, because I only downloaded it on my Wii Virtual Console. Let me tell you, I only made it up to stage 3. And even that's hard as hell. But the stages are cool as ever. For one thing they really improved on, the pea shooter weapon is actually a machine gun. But of course you got the return of many other upgrades. You got the spreader, the laser's actually better.
And you even got some new weapon upgrades making their debut, like the flamethrower, which I wasn't really too crazy about. But you can also hold these bomb things, which really help actually, especially during boss fights or if there's a lot of enemies around. But you have a limited quality amounts. But the one thing that's brand new that's really helpful in this game is the fact that you can hold up to 2, count them, 2 weapon upgrades at the same time. Only thing is, just like the first 2 games, if you're using them and you end up dying, then you lose that upgrade. But you can still switch to the other one.
The one thing that most people complain about are the overhead stages. These stages are a pain in the ass. The first one's not too bad, unless you count those cracks that, you know, the concrete falls through and you got narrow concrete to navigate over. So it's not too bad. But the next one is really where it gets to be a pain in the ass. You got these spinning platforms that I swear are absolutely atrocious. I mean, what the hell were they thinking? I mean, honestly. The bosses can be hard as hell. You get to, I mean, but it's really a cool bunch of levels and everything if you can make it this far. But man, good luck. I mean, you're really gonna need a Game Genie this time around unless you really think you're man enough to take on this challenge. You can cling onto the wall like Spider-Man, dodge fire, ride even on vehicles too as well. It's a cool game, and once you know it, what kind of last bosses do they have? First boss from the last level, there, yep, the alien head from the movie Aliens, or Alien, whatever.
And his heart as well. Yep, right after.
And of course the same one from the last level of Super C.
And even another rehash boss waiting for you at the end of the last level if you can make it past this pain in the ass guy. And okay, I might as well get this one out of the way too. Because of course Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis at the time were the competing consoles, so of course Sega Genesis also threw in their hats with Contra Hard Corps. Yeah, it's a lot different. For one thing, it doesn't have the overhead stages, which is great, but second of all, it's more or less a faster version of Contra because it's what they call blast processing, and man, it definitely does take advantage of it. It's a lot different, as you can tell, and to me, it's like freaking Contra on steroids. I mean, yeah, because like I said, the whole blast processing thing is definitely put into effect. I mean, that was Sega Genesis's idea of, gaming and their idea. Yeah, it's a pretty good game though, but yeah, it doesn't have the overhead stages, which is good. And yes, there's also a Game Boy Advance remake as well. And of course, there's also a black and white Game Boy version, or I should say green and gray, whatever the hell you call it, colored graphics. But that's black and white Game Boy, so back then, maybe taking it on the road was good for the time being, but it was called Operation C to be exact. But not to get too carried away, yeah, I just wanted to address those games in different versions of Contra or Contra 3, whatever. But those are different versions of Contra that I'm sure I'd get plenty of emails and comments about. But to avoid those and not to get too carried away, back to Contra 3, yes, the game is hard as hell.
If you manage to beat this game without the codes, or without Game Genie, well, not that there's any codes, then you are the man. That's all I can say to you. And bravo. You've conquered all evil out of the aliens as much as possible. I'm not man enough to take on this challenge, but I gave it my best shot several times. That's all I can say. So, yeah, of course, just like any other game series that was successful in 2D and, well, partially 3D, of course they gave it their shot with the PlayStation consoles by trying to put it in 3D, but most of them were just failed, mediocre attempts. And after all the bullshitting around, they said enough's enough. Let's make a sequel and call it specifically Contra 4 on Nintendo DS. Once you know it, this game is a lot of fun to play. It's got dual screens, you can actually select characters, and the music and everything is just as awesome as ever. To me, it's a little bit rehashing of some of the levels in the previous games, as well as bringing new things in as well. Of course, you got the clanging from a wall thing again, spread gun's awesome, but of course the pea shooter is back to basic pea shooter, of course. Mini boss fights in the game can be just as hard as hell. Of course, there's no codes once again. You can select the difficulty, and just like the third one I forgot to mention, if you select the easier difficulty, you get less levels, but not much of an ending though, unless you play at the hardest difficulty as possible. There's no overhead stages, luckily, this time around, but there are levels with, riding on vehicles and such and clinging onto stuff, so it's a lot of fun, but just like the previous one, it can be hard as hell. But it should seem familiar with most Contra gamers unless you're able to take on the challenge. Music, as I said, is awesome as ever. And its big surprise in this also, too, is that if you manage to beat this game no matter what difficulty, you actually can get a challenge mode unlocked, and if you complete a certain amount of challenges, you can not only get the original Contra game, yeah, I don't know why they didn't release the first Contra game on the Wii or Wii U or even 3DS Virtual Console. They released the sequels, but not the first one, which is, in my opinion, the best one out of the four, I should say, or whatever. Yeah, but only the sequels. But yes, you can get the original just the way it was on the NES. I'm not kidding. Volume can be a little low, but I'd say it's emulated perfectly. The code works, and as well as Super C if you beat more challenges. Though there is a glitch on this game, I should say, that if you do it specifically, I forget how it is, you should look on GameSpot.com. Most people say it can only be done on the normal or hard difficulty, but I have done it. I have managed to do it on the easy difficulty. If you do it right, you get 99. Count them, 99 lives. Yeah, so it's a glitch, not a cheat. But I guess you can call it a cheat code, considering it is cheating. But yeah, it'll give you 99 lives. I forget exactly how it's done. Just look it up. But yes, it is possible with a lot of patience and precision. It can be done on easy mode. But I have gotten it done, and that's the only way I've actually beaten this game and got everything unlocked. Because let me tell you, this game is still just as hard as all the other Contra games for that shooting. But it's still a lot of fun, though. I definitely recommend it if you're a hardcore gamer and you love the Contra series. It should feel familiar and fresh to most gamers. It's still a lot of fun. Great game. So, that's my memories of the Contra series right there. And, and as a bonus, of course, on the WiiWare, or say, yeah, the WiiWare, they counted as a game. There was also Contra Rebirth. I guess I'll take a quick look. Yeah, there's not much to say about it. Yeah, it's Contra. It's not three-dimensional, it's side-scrolling action. You remembered it. Feels more like kind of a remake, or, well, kind of a standalone spin-off of Contra, really. You shoot enemies, you get weapon upgrades, instant deaths. Only difference is when you get instant death, and you have a weapon upgrade, well, you don't lose that upgrade. But of course, you lose all your lives, you gotta start at a certain checkpoint, and it seems to be unlimited continuous, but overall, actually not bad. For a Contra fan, it's pretty good, but, I don't know, kind of forgettable for the most part, but I'd take a look if you're a diehard fan. It's much better than those crappy PS1 games or whatever, but overall, the Contra series has definitely left a good mark on my life. I definitely enjoyed it, and for the most part, I still play it even today. It's a lot of fun to lock and load and shoot up those aliens. So, until next time, happy gaming.